Guys, all right, I am on tonight, a little bit of a different setting. Welcome to Cosi Talks Live. For those of you watching the replay, I always love to hear from you as well. So give me a shout out in the comment section. You can say replay, you can say, hey, Cosi, or you can send me your question through there. I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to jump on board this evening. Cheers. All right. I did not get a chance to send out my reminder text this evening, so let's see if people are going to be able to find me and jump on board. We got a couple of really good questions that came in this week, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then also have a fun announcement tonight, working on a special project with one of my favorite companies. So might need your help for some of that. Hey, Scott, how are you doing? We got Kimberly watching in from the YouTube channel. Guys, this is a reminder. I am broadcasting to both my YouTube and my Facebook channel. So sometimes people have a hard time finding me on Facebook, a little bit easier on YouTube. All right, I'm going to see you guys jumping on board right now. Going to give you a couple of extra minutes there. Hey, we got compadre on board. Awesome, man. Good to have you. We got Jamar Brothers on board. Good afternoon to you as well, or good evening. All right, guys, we got Van Gregory. Oh, howdy from Texas. There's my grasshopper. What's going on, Van Gregory? Loved watching your videos, man. Loved watching your videos. We got Starla on board. We got Mark S. Oh, Mark, there must not be any basketball on tonight if you're coming to watch my show. Awesome. Starla, I saw right before I jumped on that you had sent me a question, but I didn't get a chance to see it. So if you want to throw that question into the comment section, go right ahead right now. We got Richard coming in from Arkansas. We got Pastor David on board, and we got There's Harsh. We got Chuck coming in. All right, guys, we got a nice crew on board. I do apologize. I didn't get a chance to send out my reminder text this evening. Had a lot of stuff going on from a mom's point of view, so I didn't get quite a chance to get around to it. Hey, Drew, what's going on? So yeah, kids are finishing school this week. So all the end of the year school activities that us moms have to do, which is a lot of fun. And then I get to have my kids home with me for the summer, which I absolutely love. So you guys can see I'm not quite in the same part of the studio this evening. It's just a rainy night out, and it just feels so nice to be right here next to the window listening to the rain. So thought I'd just keep it here this evening. All right, we got Tom on board. Good to see you, man. All right, we got a nice little crew going here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. For those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist, amputee specialist here in Tampa, Florida. I've been a PT for a little over 20 years. Hey there, Marianne. Marianne, I got to say, I've missed your emails. I haven't heard an update from you in a while. So shoot me an email. Let me know how are you doing. So guys, lots of fun little announcements for this evening. One of the first announcements is the local VA hospital. We have an amazing, huge local VA hospital here in Tampa. They are going to be purchasing several of my Cosi Talks Strong Body books to give out to some of their clinicians as part of their training program. So I am so excited. It's been a long time trying to arrange this, and I have some wonderful people at the VA who've been helping me along the way to get this. So for those of you who don't know, I published 2 books to go along with my video program. So an above the knee book and a below the knee book with lots of adaptive exercises for all levels. So right now the local VA is going to start carrying these books as training books for some of their clinicians. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. That's been a long time. I've been working on that. All right, we got Jerry on board and Emily. Welcome from Central PA. We got Emily. Emily, I'm so glad that you've joined this crew, man. You've been listening in for the past few weeks, and it's really been a joy having you here every Wednesday evening. So guys, another announcement. I'm going to go ahead and make an announcement now. How many of you guys, and I'll probably take a poll later on in the show for folks who jump in a little bit later, how many of you guys are planning on going to the Amputee Coalition Conference? Okay, it's this August. I think the dates are August 2nd through the 5th, and it's going to be in my backyard in Orlando, Florida. How many of you all are coming to that? I see you guys are chatting on board. Yep. How many of you guys are coming? Mark, are you going? Hey there, Nancy. Welcome in from New York. All right, so if you guys are going to the Amputee Coalition Conference in Orlando and you're thinking of going, go ahead and put it in the comments section. There is a special project I'm working on with College Park. I'll be going to the conference myself. I will be hanging at the College Park booth with that team, one of my favorite groups out there. We have a special project we're working on, so I am curious to know who will be going to the Amputee Coalition Conference. All right, put it in the comment section. All right, in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. We have This question came in a little bit towards the end of last week, and it said, I'm a new below the knee amputee. How can one move fast through the house and car by themselves? A walker is not always practical. And this is really interesting. I've never had a question phrased quite this way. Like, how do I move fast around everywhere? And it just kind of made me go, yeah, if you think about it, that is kind of one of those skills that, as an amputee learning to use a prosthesis, you've got to learn to develop. How do you move quickly from one place to the other just to kind of keep up with your lifestyle? And again, I texted this individual back and just kind of going back to, you have to build that foundation, guys. There's no shortcuts to being able to move fast or move efficiently, whether it's through your house or zipping out to the car or zipping around the community. You have to build that strong foundation. Okay. And this takes time. I think a lot of people, especially some of our newcomers, sometimes are under the impression that, after they heal from the surgery and they have that leg put on, that they can just kind of get up and walk and start moving. And many of them are obviously, disappointed when that doesn't happen. And this is where the role of a physical therapist is really important in working with patients who are trying to get faster, trying to get more efficient with their prosthesis, and identifying any deficiencies that can happen in gait, any deficiencies in strength, in range of motion, in balance and coordination, really working on the person head to toe. So unfortunately, there's no shortcuts for being able to learn how to move fast in a prosthesis, but it is possible. I know many times when I've been working with a patient and we get through the initial training, my patients are at the point where they might be walking with a walker, walking with a cane, and they're getting pretty efficient. For me, it doesn't stop there. If I feel like the person can reach a goal of walking independently, meaning no cane, no walker, then I keep going with therapy until we get to that goal. If I feel like the person is going to be using a walker as their main source of independence, it doesn't mean that we don't keep walking up or keep working on high level balance activities to make them more safe, to make them more efficient, to make them faster as well. Okay. So usually when you get towards the tail end of treatment, there's a lot of work on high level balance. And that's usually what I feel like if you've laid a good foundation for strengthening, when you get towards the tail end of it and work on high level balance, you can really get that speed that you're looking for your everyday activities. All right, let's see what we got going on. Let's see. Emily says, I wish I could go, but starting attending an amputee support group through the Amputee Coalition tomorrow. Wonderful, Emily. I am so glad. And guys, Amputee Coalition, I think one of my favorite services that they offer quite a few. One of my favorites is their support groups and also their certified peer visitor program, right? So the support groups, if you go onto their website, you can find hopefully a support group in your area. But with the certified peer visitor, these are folks that have been trained. These are amputees, right? They go out, they receive specialized training, and then they go out into the community to visit new amputees, right? And provide that support that only an amputee can provide. I know several of my patients, after they've been, getting back on their feet and getting back into the community, I send them off to go get trained as certified peer visitors because many of them have that desire to want to give back. And it's a wonderful program. Tom says, everything works out. I hope to be there. That would be awesome, Tom. You would owe me a run. I wouldn't be able to keep up with you, but you owe me a run. Mark, how come you're not going? I figured you'd be the first one to sign up. Marianne is saying, nope, Kansas City, Baca boot camp for me. Awesome, Marianne. I think that's a very good choice. Let's see. Richard, you're on Facebook at this point. Awesome. Hey there, Stephen. Stephen, I have some of your questions here later on. Emily says, how soon does someone generally get their first prosthesis after their amputation? I had my surgery on January 20th and hopefully getting my prosthesis on June 2nd. I feel like I'm late to the game or maybe just impatient to have more independence. No, neither, Emily. The textbook answer, and again, this is just one of those textbook answers, is 6 to 8 weeks after surgery. If there's been no complications with the healing process, usually by the 6-week mark, the surgeon will clear the person and they can go to the prosthetist and start getting fit for that prosthesis, keeping in mind that that soft tissue and that residual limb is going to continue healing and remodeling for several months later. If there's been any kind of delay in the wound healing, or if there's, if it's a very delicate limb, meaning if the surgeon had to do a lot of work in there, they might take a little bit longer. So that's usually the kind of the basic gist of it there. It's not unusual that I've heard of some folks that have to take a lot longer than that 6-week mark, especially, again, wound healing process and the medical condition of the person overall. All All right. So let's move on. We got another one. And guys, I had a couple of good questions coming this week, but I definitely have room tonight to answer more questions. So if you have questions, put it into the comment section. For my newcomers, that's what this show is about. It's about me providing you answers to your questions. And if I don't have the answer right away, I will definitely find it out for you. So don't be shy, guys. Go ahead and put any questions that you might have into the comments section. All right. David asks, I love how your samples have the Revo at the bottom. Oh, the Revo dial at the bottom. I wonder why my prosthetist put it at my hip. Are there any benefits to that? And also, I wonder why my prosthetist didn't choose a system where you could turn to tighten or loosen. It seems better than unlocking to loosen. And you know what? I'm going to grab my Revo socket so we can talk about that. I'll be right back. Okay. And I'm back. Okay. So last week we had Click Medical on the show, one of the companies that I love to work with. And Click Medical, they are the makers of the RevoFit adjustable socket system. Okay. So how it works is if you and your prosthetist decide that you need an adjustable socket, okay, your prosthetist will make your socket and then they will order the RevoFit kit, and it comes in a great little box like this. Inside this box are all the materials and equipment that your prosthetist needs to build the adjustability into the socket, right? So I have my demo socket, and it has all sorts of lots of action going on here. So there's a couple of different ways that they can add adjustability into the socket. They can use what's called a gap design, which it's a gap, and then it tightens up the strings here. Let me get the right dial here. Okay, so as you can see, as I twist the dial, right, those cords tighten and they pinch it together, right, to provide a tighter fit. You can use a panel. Okay, so as you can see, this one has panels built into it, right? Same deal. I click the dial or twist the dial. I loosened it a lot, so that's why it's taking a little longer to tighten, right? Okay, and it provides a snug fit to the socket, okay? So a lot of people have really liked using this socket because it basically negates them having to take their socket on and off throughout the day to put or take off socks, right? So this can accommodate, I believe it's up to 10 ply. So if you're somebody who fluctuates 5 ply, 8 ply a day, right, you have to take your socket off to add more socks. If you have something like a RevoFit socket, all you have to do is just twist the dial and it will provide that compression and that fit for you, okay? So the question that David had is, he likes how the dials were on the bottom. Now, keeping in mind, guys, this is a model socket. It's a demo socket. So the company basically created a socket that had all the stuff on here so I could demonstrate it to you. These dials can be placed in different parts throughout the socket. Okay. And I believe this gentleman was saying that, you know, he didn't like the fact that his is on the outside of his thigh. So it kind of sticks out when he's wearing pants. Okay. And he was just questioning his prosthetist to see, like, why is it there? And, you know, there's some question whether the prosthetist said it has to be there or doesn't have to be there. What I do like about the RevoFit system, guys, is your prosthetist has a lot of options, okay? They have options in terms of how they build the adjustability into the socket, and they do have options as to where the dial can go, okay? It doesn't have to be right there. They do have some options. Now, I'm no prosthetist, I'm not an engineer, but I can only imagine that you have to place things somewhat close by. But actually, now that I think about it, no, because this dial right here goes to the adjustment way up here. So as you can see, they were able to place the dial in a location that was far away from the actual place of adjustment, right? So if you're talking to your prosthetist about this, right, and you're thinking about getting one of these sockets, then yes, I would say where you place that BOA dial is going to be kind of important. You know, cosmetically, you don't want it sticking out in a place where you're wearing pants and it looks a little funny. You do want it to be in a place where you can easily get to it, okay? So, you know, when you're wearing it, you got to think about, okay, if I'm wearing pants, where am I going to have the dial that I can adjust it through my clothing, which you are able to do. Now, David was asking why the prosthetist didn't choose a system where you could turn to tighten or loosen. Okay. So this year, and if you guys watched the show from April. It's on my YouTube channel, guys. Go back to my YouTube channel. I have all the shows there from Click Medical. But basically, they came up with a new dial system. It's called the Click Reel, okay? And you can twist it forward or twist it one way to tighten, twist it the opposite way to loosen. With this particular BOA dial, right, when you want to loosen, you have to release all of the tension, right? And it releases it all. And then to tighten it, you have to tighten it up again. Okay. So with the Click Reel, you don't have to release all the tension. You can do what's called micro adjustments, which is a really, really nice feature. But that's something that just recently came out. So those of you who have the BOA dial, that's because you had the system that was available up until a few months ago. Okay. So that's that part. But definitely, if you're someone who's looking to update your system, if you're someone who's looking at a socket, I would, highly recommend the Click Reel because you can adjust it to tighten and adjust it to loosen as well. And it's really kind of nice to have that micro adjustability available. Okay, so that's good. Let me see. There were some other questions that came in. So Jamar says treadmill helps with speed and getting used to excursion. Yes, and I typically, depending. I'll use the treadmill sometimes if I'm doing speed or sprint training with some of my runners. When it comes to real life situations, I actually like to just use real life situations to train my patients in terms of speed and how they get things done. So setting up, either an obstacle course or going out into the community and working with my patients there. Scott says, I've met with a peer visitor and we've become great friends and knew each other with little to start with, right? And it's one of those things where, when you meet someone who's been through an unusual experience like you have, whether it's, having an amputation or somebody else who's been through cancer, there's just automatically a certain level of understanding there, right? So I really like that program. It's something that, as a therapist who is not an amputee, I love to send my patients off to have some support in that way. Yes. So Mark S says the dial has to be in the lock position to tighten, right? You push it in and then you can start to tighten the dial. So Emily says no issues with healing, just issues with lymphedema and swelling. I got casted on March 31st and went for my first fitting on May 17th and it didn't fit due to the swelling. So I go back on June 2nd. Hopefully it'll fit this time. Lots of pumping and compression wrapping until then. Yeah. And Emily, in your case with the lymphedema, I don't know if you're getting an adjustable socket or not, but even without having issues with lymphedema, the changes in limb volume can be quite dramatic in those first few months to a year and a half, especially as you become more active. The limb volume will start to change a lot. So Jerry just said, let's see. I just walked with a walker for the first time on Monday. I became a bilateral BK a year ago and just started to wear prosthetics a month ago. Well, congratulations to you, Jerry. That's a huge accomplishment. It must feel good to be back on your feet and moving around again. Congratulations. So Emily, as you can see, you can have all across the board as far as when people start. And I will say this, be patient with yourself. As your body is remodeling and those tissues are, changing, you're going to have a lot of changes to your socket. So I know you're working with someone who's helping you with that lymphedema and staying on top of it. But just expect that as you become more active, things are going to change and you're going to have changes made to your socket to keep up with it. I'll bet, Jerry Ann. That's wonderful. Okay, so we've got someone, let's see. Here we go. So Stephen says, I'm a left above knee amputee and I have a fairly short femur with residual limb and some extra soft tissue on the backside at the bottom. What style or type of suspension socket have you used that will hold the limb firmly on? I have a seal and Oser liner now, and the flesh on the distal end where the seal is loses volume with socks to tighten on the fit. So guys, this is something, and he says it's been going on for a few years and it's becoming discouraging. And this is something interesting. I was a little hesitant to talk about this on the show because this is, it's something new that's out. It's something that we've talked about on the show a little bit. I've run into several cases now, viewers who have emailed me questions that present with the case of having a very short femur, residual femur. And the challenges that present there are from a prosthetic standpoint is suspension. How do you get that leg to hold on when you have, very, very short residual femur? There are several different types of suspension systems. I'm for me, it's working with the prosthetist a lot to try all the different suspension systems. That being said, it comes to a point where I've seen some viewers that for years they've been struggling and they still have not been able to find a feasible solution for suspension. And because of the short femur. So at this point, I would recommend saying, have you looked at osseointegration? And that's a pretty radical jump because of those of you who have been watching the show this year, we've had the Integrum team on board the show to talk about the OPRA implant system, which is the form of osseointegration procedure that is FDA approved here in the United States. And a few years ago, I would have been very hesitant to make that recommendation, but now I'm starting to get more comfortable after seeing the work that they are doing and just being able to talk to some of their patients who have had this procedure done. A common thread that I've seen among many of their successful stories are AKs that have very, very short femurs, right? And that they've been through several tries, several prosthetists, several prosthetic setups, and not had success, not had functional success. Osseointegration is a very intense procedure. And within a very intense recovery process. It's basically, I tell people, it's a year of your life, almost a year of your life that you will spend, undergoing surgery along with the rehab process. And you have to have it done by a surgeon who has been trained and experienced and has the support staff around them. And we've had several examples of that on the show already this year. And we're having another example of that coming up in August. We're going to have a wonderful surgeon on board come and talk to us about his particular, how his hospital system has an amazing program for this. But this is something that I would tell an individual who's struggling this way to just start reading up on it. Okay. And I have several resources on my website that give you places that you can go to ask for credible information on osseointegration through Integrum. But this is something that I would say, just start reading up on it and just ask yourself if this is something that you could potentially look at and consider in talking to one of these surgeons. All right, so let's see. Emily says, practice crawling at PT yesterday. What a workout, especially because of the L4-5 spina bifida. Oh yeah, that's a huge workout. And sometimes people are like, why would my physical therapist put me on all fours and make me crawl? That is the weirdest sounding treatment ever. Okay. And a lot of it goes back to developmental. So, once upon a time when I first started my very first job as a physical therapist, I was the therapist assigned to the pediatric wards at Jackson Memorial Hospital. So I got a chance to work with all the pediatric units and do developmental pediatric physical therapy. I worked with children with spina bifida, cerebral palsy, all sorts of pathologies and everything involved, right? So physical therapy for a pediatric patient is development, right? How does the child develop and eventually start walking and develop their gait? So prior to the walking, right, we have to teach children how to build a strong core, how to build a strong foundation. We do that through crawling. We start with rolling. Those of you who have babies and saw your babies grow up, right? You saw them first learn how to be on their tummy and lift up their heads against gravity. And then they slowly learned how to turn from their tummy to their back, and then from their back into their tummies. And then they learn how to kind of get themselves up onto their elbows. And pretty soon they scoot their bottom up and they're on all fours, right? So it's a very deliberate progression before you start walking. And the reason for this is because you're developing coordination. You're developing the ability to move against gravity with all these different kinds of muscles, right? And on top of that, the muscles are learning to work with one another, the different groups of muscles across the body. So it's really cool to see this, especially if you know, as a mom, I have 4 kids and I saw my 4 babies go through this process, and it was just fascinating, right? So when you have adult patients, sometimes with stroke patients, traumatic brain injury patients, patients who have neurological involvement, such as an adult patient with spina bifida, right? We sometimes hark back to these developmental pediatric strategies, right? To kind of help the brain kind of relearn those movement patterns and have them develop the strength and the foundation that goes with these movement patterns. So, sometimes and it's in my book, actually. I think I have a couple of those exercises in my book where the person is in quadruped position, meaning they're on their hands and their knees, right? And they're activating the core muscles. They're activating shoulder girdle. They're activating pelvic girdle muscles. I mean, it's quite a bit of a workout. And, with this, as a therapist, you put resistance in different planes and things like that. And yeah, it's a workout. It's a workout. Emily says, my trunk is kind of wobbly when I try to do tall kneeling right now, but I'm working on it. Yeah. Okay. So in many ways, you're kind of going through that developmental process again, Emily. So props to your therapist. So that sounds like they're probably a neuro PT would be my guess, if that's their specialty. All right. Let's see. Oh, hey there, Barbara. So Emily says lymphedema therapy is no longer covered by insurance. Long story now, it's just up to me to stay on top of pumping and wearing compression garments. And again, Emily, for someone like yourself who's had, a longer medical history with lymphedema, that is actually a pretty reasonable goal, is hopefully that they've instructed you so that you can manage it. And then hopefully you won't have any more exacerbations or crisis moments, but knowing that you have that therapist to go back to if you have something that you're not able to handle on your own. But I do know many successful cases with lymphedema, whether it's from breast cancer lymphedema or, idiopathic lymphedema, where the person learned to manage it on their own. And that's kind of ultimately the goal, to give you that kind of independence. Drew says, what do you think of the hi-fi socket? It's been recommended after the Hopkins visit. I'll be very honest with you, Drew. I am not familiar with the hi-fi socket, but I'd be happy to kind of look it up for you and just kind of give you my 2 cents on it. And that being said, okay. So guys, especially for those of you who are my newbies to the show, I just put my email address up there. If you have any questions for me, that's where you can reach me and that's where you can find me. And I answer all of my emails. So if you want to ask me a question through my email, you can do it that way. Drew, I'm going to give you a small homework assignment. I give my viewers homework assignments. I want you to email me, Drew, and say, Cosi, tell me about hi-fi sockets, because I need that memory jogger so I don't forget to do that. All right. Thank you, Drew. Okay. Thank you. And guys, if for whatever reason I don't answer your email within 2 days, send me another one. It just might mean that it got lost in the spam inbox. So just go ahead and send me another one until I answer your question. Let's see. Van Gregory says, my blades have been approved by CAF. Yay. And we'll be attending their mobility camp in September. That is wonderful. And I'm sure your driver will also thank you, Van Gregory. I'm also ordering Strong Body. Looking forward to it. And I'll keep you posted. That is wonderful, Van Gregory. I am so happy to hear about this. So happy. And I want to see more videos of how you're doing with it. And see, Emily says, my PT has explained the plan to lead up to walking. And my mom is like, sounds like when you learned to walk as a kid. Right? With a stander, a walker, and then eventually crutches. Yep. And that's it. And the reason why, it might seem like it's a pretty long process and involved, but again, you're building that foundation and there's no skipping steps. There's no shortcuts, but building that foundation is ultimately going to give you a much better functional outcome down the line, Emily. So hats off to your physical therapist there. All right. So let's see, we got okay. So this came from the same individual who was asking me questions about the Revo dial as to why his prosthetist would have chosen to put it out at the hip. And, he's kind of being told that that's the way it has to be. And again, I'm not a prosthetist, but from what I've seen from these RevoFit sockets, they do have a lot of options as to where they can place the dial. Okay. So it would be to ask ask the prosthetist, well, why did it have to be placed here? And why couldn't it have been placed in a different location? And again, Click Medical, the company, they are absolutely wonderful about answering questions and helping prosthetists and patients troubleshoot. So I've connected several of you directly with the team sometimes when there's been a couple of questions. So guys, don't feel shy about just kind of reaching out directly to the team and just saying, hey, we're having some issues with this part of the dial. Can it be placed in a different place? If not, why? And again, that would be the thing I would say, hold your prosthetist's feet to the fire a little bit and just ask him or her why. And if the answer is, well, that's just the way it is, well, that's just not a good enough answer. They should be able to give you a mechanical reason as to why they're putting the particular dial in that location. It might be that they just simply aren't aware that they have other options, and you might just need to kind of cue them on that. All right. And then this one, it says, okay, and it follows up with saying, I feel like it's tight when I walk faster. And they're a little confused. So this person is saying that when he wears his socket and he has on the RevoFit adjustable socket and he starts to walk faster, that the socket feels tighter. And he says it's weird because my prosthetist tells me it should feel looser when I'm walking. Okay, so a couple of things here. Sometimes people can be a little bit over aggressive with getting a snug fit on their socket. A lot of times I'll have patients that have come into my clinic and they're complaining that their socket hurts, right? And I kind of look at their setup and I realized, okay, it's because you have on way too many socks, right? And you're basically strangling your residual limb into that socket. So a lot of times we just need to relieve that socket of some of that pressure, take off a sock or two, or in the case of the RevoFit, just loosen the adjustment just a little bit to see if that helps, right? So that's usually kind of the first thing. The other thing I would think of is, as you walk faster, right, you are activating your muscles in a more aggressive manner, right? So your muscle fibers are they're recruiting more muscle fibers, and it could be that the muscles are just swelling ever so slightly, and they're activating better because you're using them more aggressively. So that might be why your socket might feel just a little bit more snug. But usually it's because the person just has it on too tight, or they just have on way too many socks. All right, guys. That is actually all the questions for this evening. I know it's kind of a shorter show this evening, but we had some really good questions come in. We had a busy week last week. So a couple of things. I'm giving you guys some homework assignments today. If you are going to the Amputee Coalition Conference, I would love to hear from you. I am working on something with College Park. I will be with them at their booth. Okay. Yep. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to type here at the same time. It's just not working. But I will be at the College Park booth. And I would love to see you all. But if you are planning on going to the conference, send me an email and we can see about maybe if you're a possible candidate for this project we're working on with College Park. Tom says, when I got my running blade 16 years ago, all they said to me was to be careful with it. No PT, no training with anyone. It was all me. Yeah, I hear a lot of stories like that, Tom. And I do, you obviously made it work for yourself and you've done extremely well. But yes, usually when it comes to running, I actually love teaching my patients who are running candidates how to run. And I feel like it helps them, get into running without injury. That's kind of one of those things that I really kind of harp on as a physical therapist is if you have the ability to work with a physical therapist for running, to help prevent injuries down the line, not to mention just to improve the efficiency of your running, like a running coach. So there's a lot of physical therapists out there who specialize in running. That can be a wonderful, wonderful resource there. All right, guys. So that is it. It's kind of short and sweet for this week. Next week, we're going to have a general Q&A. Guys, keep an eye out. I'm going to be, this summer, I'm going to be kind of beefing up a little bit more of my activity on social media. I have a couple of fun activities planned, trying to put some more education out there for you guys on the social media channels. So if you're not already following me on Instagram or Facebook, go ahead and click follow and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be posting some new information, new content on there. So would love the support. That's my YouTube channel right there. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead, give it a visit, subscribe, look through all the videos, a lot of information there. So I think I covered everything tonight. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I'm going to go get these kids ready for their last days of school, and I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.